I am. We are. This is Norwood. Hold on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of I Am Norwood. I'm happy to have with me today current Norwood Public School trustee, Rahul Vaghasia, who is also running for the council. Rahul, good afternoon.
Hey, Paulie, how are you?
Good. How's everything in your part of town?
Good, good. It's what a hop and a skip away from your part of town.
Excellent. Looks like it's a galaxy away from the ceiling, but
I
fantastic.
had to do that. I listened to the past interviews, and I believe Heather had said this was her favorite spot for a board meeting during the pandemic. I'm like, all right, let's get back to nostalgia and get down in the
Yes,
back
indeed.
cave.
Yeah. I'm glad you've joined us from the Andromeda galaxy. So, what, let's jump into it again, because I'm trying to give everybody an equal 30 minutes or thereabout. What is driving you? What's motivating you to do this? Why bother running for council?
I've been asked that numerous times, and I served on the Board of Education for a good 3 terms, and it's just what's next for me. And I find purpose and meaning in responsibility, and more importantly, responsibility to my family, but also those around me. And that's where I just instill a sense of just purpose and meaning above and beyond just seeking happiness. And I just think that to take on responsibility that others would kind of turn away from, because I've been told it's a thankless job, just like the Board of Education. You're never really in it for the glory or the accolades or the pat on the back. You're just doing the things that need to be done. And I've been instilled that sense of service since I was little, and I learned it from my father, and it's just the next step for me, I believe.
Okay. And what are the biggest issues, if any, as you see it facing the town at present?
It's just I don't like to look at it as from a challenge perspective. I just like to look at it from a pulse of the Norwoodians perspective. Where is Norwood? Are we in a good trajectory, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year down the line? Any act that we take now, it has to kind of have a meaning or some sort of a validation or emphasis on how that's going to affect you 10 years from now, just in anything that you do in life, right? And I look at Norwood in the last 2 years, I look at the landscape. I mean, it's a wonderful town. I can't take anything away from Norwood. I put it second to none in terms of the services that are offered, and in terms of just the way the citizens of the town, the residents, that we have a lot of long-term residents, we have a lot of new residents. So I don't look at it as a challenge. I don't look at it as Norwood needs fixing. It absolutely does not need fixing. My position is, again, just it's the next step for me in terms of taking on responsibility. And if elected, I'm a trustee to that responsibility, and my role and duty as being a trustee to that major responsibility is to add value. It's where can I add value, and as opposed to challenges, there's opportunities. Opportunities. Just in speaking to residents, the landscape of Norwood is changing in terms of the demographics. Obviously, the COVID, what an influx of people from the city, and these are eager people that, or just from near and far, or people are coming to Norwood. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise your children, and we just need to have a pulse on them. And because of COVID, a lot of residents, they're just not known. They don't have the access points to become involved, and things like that. And it's just those are some areas of opportunity. But apart from that, it's not about me, Angie and I coming in and saying that this is a problem and that is a problem and that is a problem. No, change. You have to be very, very, very careful with change. Whenever my philosophy is that this, people like to say status quo, but the way I say it is that what we have today is predicated upon years and years of doing things right, and there's certain truths and positive things from tradition. So you always have to have one foot ground in that tradition, and the other foot tepidly looking at creative or constructive or needed change, not just say change for the sake of change. Absolutely not.
Okay, okay,
It has to be seamless and it has to add value.
okay. And just give us a little portrait of your history. Where did you grow up and attend school?
So I grew up in Northville
Oh, okay,
up
okay,
until 91. So I'm a graduate of Nathan Hale, Thomas Jefferson, and then Nathan Hale. And in
okay.
91, we moved to Norwood. I did not attend Norwood Public School because at that time I was a freshman in high school at NVOT.
All right.
Graduated NVOT in 95. And then I went to New York University, Stern School of Business from 95 to 99 in the village. I lived in the village for a few years, was married in 2000. Shortly thereafter, I moved back to Norwood to raise a family.
Okay, excellent. And you grew up in the area, so what, if anything, do you take away from growing up in the area that you, and knowing its rhythms, that you think would be applicable to what you would bring to the council, or just to the what anybody would bring to the town today? Like what lessons can you take from back then, if anything?
Being a good neighbor, I think it starts there.
Okay.
Well, it starts with the family, and then it starts with your neighbors. There's so many little things that often are forgotten, that separate the wheat from the chaff, and it starts with treating your neighbor the way you'd want to be treated, just basic fundamentals. And if you have that kind of a mindset and that kind of an attitude, I think it's still some sort of a welcoming, open arms kind of an attitude. And growing up, that's what it was for us. When we were children, we'd ride our bikes and nobody really had to worry. You knew, I know today's landscape is different, but it was that third scream for dinners when all the kids scattered and went home, because they were always around playing manhunt in the woods or whatnot. And I'm just amazed to see that I can see that on my street on McKenna. We call it the McKenna gang. Our kids grew up, and all the kids in Cobblestone would just hang out all day, and it was nostalgic. It was like seeing my childhood, and that kind of a neighborhood warmth and feel is something that that I hold really, that I pride myself. I just pride that kind of a culture of Norwood.
Okay. Name one thing, if anything, you would like to see the town put more tax money towards going forward.
That's interesting. I know that there was a big initiative with the parks, with the park and with the sidewalks, and I see the landscape of electronic vehicles that are coming in, and in order for Norwood, and this is not just change for change, if you do the research, there's probably a few hundred electric vehicles of electric vehicles in Norwood, and that's increasing every year. So I think that we need some strategically placed EV chargers. It shows as a model that that we're concerned about the environment. That's number one. And number two, it provides a practical need. We have gas stations, so let's throw some EV chargers in strategic places around town. There's grants available, so it's the effect on the tax levy could be mitigated. Coming from finance, I'm always looking from a budget perspective as well. So that's an easy win for the town and for the residents.
Okay. What, if anything, would you want to see the town spend less on going forward?
I really haven't taken a dive into the financials or the books, but I feel that when the need is there, it is addressed. There hasn't been any kind of silly spending or anything like that. So it's just I don't see any kind of exuberance that comes off my mouth. I'm in a position of not being on the council and not being on the meeting, so it would just not be right, and it would be kind of disrespectful to be accusatory and say that there's X amount of spending is too much. So that's not where I come from.
That's fair. Okay. I guess this is sort of a different part of a similar question. If there's any one borough ordinance that you're aware of that you think could be made a little stronger or a little more limited, what would that be? Is there something you'd like to see strengthened law-wise in town? Let's put it that way, or weakened?
I'm guilty of this, but it's political signs.
Political science. Okay.
Right. And there's nothing, there's absolutely probably very little that can be done about it. And I'm extremely 100% guilty of it, as are my other fellow candidates. But I think that if that could be curtailed through some common sense. When I ran for the board, I think there was only 2 times where I put signs, and it was very, very few signs. And I had calls for signs to be put on my lawn for other mayoral races, and my response was the same, that we're in Norwood. The Board of Education definitely should not be a partisan board. But I don't think that the council should either. When I have people ask me, what's your affiliation, Democrat or Republican? And I say, it doesn't really matter in a place like Norwood. I think, Paulie, you and I, and anyone that's seemingly different ideologically, we're pretty much the same when it comes to being in a small town. And that goes to my first point, is treat your neighbors the way you want to be treated. And, it just sounds so cliche-ish, but if we do that and we agree to disagree and then have conversations and consensus, there's no big ticket federal issue that affects us ideologically. And I feel we're oftentimes marionettes from the powers that may be, whether it be Trenton or the Fed, trying to distill their views on the parties that are local. So in a perfect world, it would be non-partisan. I mean, I'm friends with most people on the other side and vice versa, and I've never really thought of myself leaning in either direction when it comes to a small town. This is Norwood. It's shouldn't be partisan, and that's my biggest worry about Norwood.
Okay, but I will apologize for the arguably starting the current proliferation of signs, with my mug being plastered all over town a couple of years ago.
No, we're all guilty of it. That ran. It's just
the picture thing was unnecessary for me, but
at least my running, the person I'm running with, Angie, at least she photos well, right? So she's photogenic. So 50% of our signs are good.
That's fair. Yeah. BJ had a great head of hair, so 50% of ours as well. So
right.
Still has a great head of hair. Last time I saw him, actually. Let me see here. Let me give you a quick hypothetical. Based on actual events, many towns over, from my practice, I'll give you this hypothetical. So you have a burrow tree that falls on somebody's property, destroys vehicles, takes down power lines, etc. The residents files a notice of claim seeking maybe $15,000 in damages, comes to the council for discussion in closed session about whether to settle this or whether to bring it to litigation to chisel it down a little bit. Again, total pot being 15. What would be your inclination as far as analyzing a situation like that if it came in?
I believe that it's a private matter, with the resident's tree falling on another resident's yard.
Let me clarify. A municipal tree, like one owned by Norwood, falling onto a resident's yard.
Okay, so the claim would
borough property. Yeah.
So the claim most likely would come from the attorney of the
resident, right? The resident suing the borough if he doesn't get what he wants, basically.
And the resident is suing, or the other?
The resident would be suing, yeah, because it's a borough tree.
Because it was a borough tree that fell.
Correct. Yeah.
I would, if it was in a closed session, I'm not an attorney, nor do I claim to be one. I would. That's what the borough attorney is for, and I would take the borough attorney's counsel and advice, engage our insurance company to take a look at that to see if we are insured, and they would have obviously an attorney to represent us. When it comes to legal matters, you always want to revert to the experts, even if you are an attorney on the board or on the council.
Right.
It's a conflict of interest. You don't want to look at your own legal counsel or take matters in your own hand. You want to get the right legal advice and counsel. That's number one. On the part of the borough, I would review our procedures and policies for evaluating borough trees to see which ones are jeopardized and which ones aren't, what's being done, where was the miss, and how do we not miss that again? Is there any layer, an extra layer of patrol that we need to look at these trees, and why did
Okay.
it happen? I would just do a deep dive into the study of the what, where, how, and why. With respects to the legal matter, I would take the counsel of my insurance company's attorneys and the borough attorney.
Okay. And I should mention the first thing I was told, well, interestingly, the first thing I was told when I was thinking about running for office is, oh, we could use an attorney up there. First thing I was told once I was on the council was, don't think like an attorney. You're not an attorney up here. So it's interesting. But obviously it helps the mindset. It was amusing to hear that progression of philosophy there.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us briefly, and there's a follow-up question here. Give us your resume as a volunteer from town. You already alluded to some of it. Tell us what you've done in town as far as volunteer work.
I'm just an elected official on the Board of Education.
Okay.
And currently I'm the head of finance, and I've sat on the curriculum committees. It's been very, very meaningful. I've seen the school, we've collectively as a board, we've navigated the school through some really, really tough times dating back to the Christie days when superintendents were capped. And it's really difficult to explain that to your constituents of the revolving door of superintendents. Right. But essentially it's a superintendent will only, your pay is capped based on the size of your district. So you're going to attract a full-time superintendent who knows what he's going to be paid. And more than likely, because we're a smaller district, it's going to be an incubation period for him. So trying to navigate through the turnover of leadership and, have the school in a stable place. It's been a long game, and it's been very, very meaningful. You move a ship a couple of nautical miles, it's going to take a while for it to get righted. And if you look at now with Kevin, our superintendent, the two principals, and we have a school that's a middle school and an elementary school. And I think that's just an unbelievable step ahead, just philosophically and psychologically for these kids, that they're not in one district K-8. There's something for them to look forward to. It doesn't become the same. And just doing those little things, it'll affect your test scores and your performance, and also your social, emotional well-being. So just seeing the school through fruition through many of these initiatives, I think has been very, very meaningful. So that's pretty much, and then the other volunteering things are just in the context of the PTO. I've supported them.
Okay.
But I mean, that's easier because, the PTO, they run it. For me, it's writing a check or
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
that organization, and the meaning and the meaning that they bring to the school is unbelievable. I mean, this PTO should be modeled.
I certainly don't disagree with that. So I think you've kind of touched on this already. Proudest moment as a volunteer in town.
In the context of my boards, obligations, every little, even the little wins are really proud, but these are, there's no red herring or there's no one thing, but if it's the little wins that the aggregate make up a very fulfilling, proud moment. And it's when you have a parent or somebody that's not happy for an experience and you have a role in solving that, there's meaning in that because you're affecting that child's life. Also our teachers, I think we have some of the best teachers. This last year, I had the opportunity to sit on the negotiations committee, and it was just a seamless, very agreeable, not contentious at all resolution to sometimes negotiations that can take on past contract years. So we're very happy to have a contract in hand for these teachers. I was extremely proud of the work that the negotiations committee did, and I was proud to sit on that committee.
Okay. How about, is there a least proud moment of your volunteering life? Flip side.
Well, the vitriol is everywhere, right? Sometimes during the pandemic, sometimes I'd focus too much on the 2% making 98% of the noise. This time it was the 0.001%
Okay. Okay.
98% and 99.9% of the noise. And it's not that I'm proud or not proud. It's just that why did we get to such a place where there has to be just that mean vileness that the pandemic led people to behave in a certain way. And it's just not one. It wasn't systemic. So again, it's 0.001%.
Right.
But it just didn't sit. It didn't sit well that we couldn't satisfy these people. I don't like anyone angry or disgruntled.
Okay. Okay.
And again, that was just a small snippet. I mean, I'm just trying to fish here. Overwhelmingly, everybody was amazing throughout everything and was completely supportive. And I think this town really came together. One of the proudest moments was when a mom decided, and I noticed this, when a mom decided that Norwood needs some motivation. And when we were taking walks, we'd randomly see colored rocks.
Oh, yes.
Norwood. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, that mom's
still around, I believe.
Yeah, that mother should be given an award, or those kids that came up with that concept, and it just went viral. And it was the most beautiful thing to walk down Summit and walk back into Cobblestone to see that. So those are the things I like to focus on,
certainly.
and trying to appease that disgruntled person. Right?
All in the game. Is there a yearly event that you'd like to see added to Norwood's mix of yearly events? We have Norwood Day, the PTO Carnival, the 5K. Is there anything like that in that same vein you'd like to see added that you've seen done in other towns?
I think that we do it really, really well. If there were any other things that needed to be added, I mean, maybe an Earth Day, a tree planting celebration. I know that we do something for the school. Maybe borough-wide, something to do with Earth Day or the environment. And what I really want is residents to get involved and listen to the residents of what they want,
right,
and provide that. If it's a weekly hike that Annie does, great. If there's a bike club that we could initiate, great. Anything to do with wellness, I'm really for.
Okay.
But again, it's listening to the residents. What's the need? What would it take for the residents to be actively involved? Even on the board meeting or in the council meeting, I want to see it full with energy and with optimism. And unfortunately, I live in the real world and not in some utopia. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 people in the board meeting, or when you were the liaison, you were always there. And we look forward to your sarcastic sense of humor, which I love. But they're empty, and I think that we need our meetings full, and
maybe the board will
should be involved.
Maybe the board will appoint me liaison emeritus, and I can resume doing that.
Absolutely, maybe me too. Right? I'm on. This is my last term on the board.
Excellent. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So here's some interesting questions now I want to give you.
Sure.
Putting on your Norwood history cap, if you had to name a New Jersey rest stop or dedicate a local holiday in honor of someone from Norwood's past or present, who would that be and why?
The Mayor Derrickle.
Okay.
Growing up, he was the nicest man, and I knew just Derrickle from him being the Norwood mayor. When we'd go to that farm with my mother, and it's just kind, zero ego. It was very selfless. It was just about his customers and about his residents, and just a humble man, and would give us always the right advice. He would always do right by us. And I just think that's something to learn from that generation and that character and that mindset.
Okay. Real quick, Mario's or cousins?
No comment. I grew up in the West Village. I made my bones there. Joe's. That I've been trying to get you to go around the corner on Bleecker. Listen, Sal's a friend. I like both places. I probably go to both.
Okay, that's fair.
My daughters love Mario's. I like both.
All right. This has been a touchier one than I thought it would be, but my prior interviews thus far. But would you be in favor of renaming the neighborhood north of Rockland Avenue and Tapan Road the Upper West Side of Norwood?
So we have the East Hills, and then we have the Upper West Side, and then what would I be? Kips Bay?
You guys already have a name. You got the. I guess you would be if you do the continuum of the map. Sure.
Right. So only if Cobblestone could be Tribeca.
I'm willing to horse trade to get that done. Shoot. Let me see. Oh, give me 1 second here. Okay.
No worries. No worries.
Oops. Let me see here. All right, one last one before I give you your closing time. Favorite shore town as a North Jersey lifetime resident?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Favorite shore town as a North Jersey lifetime resident? Why?
You know, believe it or not, I'm not a Jersey Shore person, but the times that I've been, I loved Spring Lake.
Okay.
In high school, we used to go to Seaside. And I'm not that familiar with the Jersey Shore, to be very, very honest with you, you know.
Okay.
And I've always been envious of people. Oh, we're going down our shore house, and like, yeah, that'd be kind of nice to do, you know.
When I first joined the council, I was pretty sure everyone had a shore house down there. I thought I was going to have to get one as a member of the council, but it turned out to be more of an informal thing.
Well, we're priced out now.
What's that?
We're priced out of that out of those neighborhoods now. It's ridiculous what the shore houses are going for.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
You grew up in Hicksville, right?
Jericho, one town over, Hicksville train station.
So you went to, you were a Hamptons guy probably growing up.
Yeah, I mean, as opportunity calls for it.
Yeah, we've done that a few times.
Yeah, a lot of friends had houses out there after graduation from college,
right?
Things like that, and handful. Yeah, I was out there a bunch, not as much as others, but certainly a nice getaway itself.
And you had some great concerts at that other beach,
Jones Beach.
Beach.
So you're blowing the lid off of my bridge and tunnel past here. Shoot. But no, actually, my first concert was at Jones Beach, and it was Weird Al and the Monkees. I will admit, here and now. Yes.
87, 88.
I'm not sure what year, but that is my first. That goes down in history as my first concert. And
there you go.
Annie as my first movie in the theater. It's a fairly undistinguished start to both, but it is what it is.
Yeah, good memory.
Is there anything you want to mention in closing that we haven't otherwise covered that you'd want prospective voters to consider when talking about you?
No, I'm a team player. I can get along with anybody, and it's been proven even on the Board of Education when people have come in with a certain mindset, or not even a mindset, but if it just seems like it was contentious at the beginning, or there was some sort of there was never an agenda, but just you could feel it, right? And I just have this ability to kind of be myself, and if you're yourself without posturing, you have the ability to get along with everybody. And I've made some of the most unlikely friendships from my time on the board with people that would otherwise assume that how are they friends? They don't like each other. Or they ran against each other. That's the biggest thing. Like, when you run against somebody, then oftentimes people kind of assume that there's some sort of contention, but it's not about that. I've worked with people on the opposite side and vice versa, and we've always gotten along. And that goes to my conclusion that we're more alike than we are different. And we have to leverage those likes into opportunities and serve Norwood. And that's the message that I would leave,
I think to that point, as a lifelong boxing fan, I always know that they'll go hard until the bell rings and they'll hug it out. So,
isn't that democracy?
Yep.
Isn't that the Continental Congress and the debates between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, and that's the foundings of our democracy, and we can't we have to go back to that. We can't wake up thinking that what did that person do or what did that person do and how am I going to posture to get one back? And it's just there's no, where's the Norwood resident there?
Right, right. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, taking a few
Absolutely.
minutes here.
Absolutely, Paul. And you're
And
doing a good thing. I like this.
thank you, thank you. And then folks, tune in for the next interview coming soon.